Thank you so much, Lauren, and welcome everyone to today's session. Now, before we start, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners from around Australia and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I extend this acknowledgement to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be joining us today. Good morning. I'm Jana Schmitz, CPA Australia's Technical Advisor for Assurance and Digital Economy Policy. And in today's webinar, James Bird, Simon Smithers, and KP Aldrich will be discussing cloud technology and explain how finance professionals can benefit from using the cloud. Now, before we kick off, let me briefly introduce you to our expert panelists. We have KP Aldrich with us today. KP has more than 30 years of finance experience, half of which in financial management for multinational companies headquartered in Singapore. And in her current position as finance director for Vopak Terminals, KP is responsible for finance, legal, and procurement functions in Australia. Now, Vopak is the world's leading tank storage company with 73 terminals operating across 23 countries. We are also joined by James Bird. James Bird is a C-suite leader who has led finance, HR, supply chain, and IT teams across Asia, ANZ, and Europe. He has driven global business transformations for both finance and HR at Unilever, and currently James is Oracle's Office for Finance Director. Our third panelist is Simon Smithers, who is a strategy director at Oracle. And Simon is a champion of the cloud and has had a career in information technology for over 20 years. So welcome to James, Simon, and KP. Now, if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So what you can expect to learn today or to take away from today's session is a very good understanding of the different cloud technologies. So we will do a deep dive into the differences between private and public cloud. And we will also help you to identify the right questions to ask when considering to transition to cloud in your organization. And in addition to that, we provide some insights into how cloud technology supports finance professionals in their daily tasks. Lastly, we will also touch on new technologies like AI and blockchain and explain how they are supported by cloud technology. Now, before I hand over to James, we would like you to answer our first poll question today. You can see the poll question in the bottom right corner in the text box. And the question is, do you know the differences between public and private cloud? Now, if you could answer yes or no, that would be fantastic. You have 30 seconds. And full disclosure, before I met Simon and James from Oracle, I didn't really know the differences between the public and the private cloud. So the two of them will give us a great overview of what the public cloud and the private clouds are. And while we're waiting for the results to come in, I just take this as an opportunity to remind everyone to post your questions into the Q&A box so that at the end of our webinar, James, Simon, and KP can address your questions. Fantastic. And I see that we have received a lot of responses here. 32% of you are not yet fully familiar with the differences between public and private cloud. So that's really exciting, because I will hand over to James now, who will introduce you to the concepts of private and public cloud. Over to you, James. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jana. And look, thank you all for joining us today. I think we've got a great session coming up, so please do stay with us. Indeed, we will be talking about that difference between public and private cloud and a lot more besides as we drill into that topic. I'll just give you a quick view of the agenda for today. We're going to be talking, actually, first of all, why cloud? Why is cloud such a buzzword, and we're reading about it all the time? And we'll actually go in, discuss the differences between these clouds. And then importantly, software as a service, which is actually a type of cloud, we'll understand why that in particular really matters to us as CPAs and finance professionals. So before we really dive in, I'll just want to quickly throw up this slide. It's a safe harbor statement, and I'll let you all read it briefly. The key thing here is, you shouldn't just rely on this presentation, of course, for making any purchasing decisions. But as I work for Oracle now, why cloud? The cloud market's absolutely massive. It's worth, according to Gartner, and there are different measurements, but it's $300 billion. But importantly, I think it's growing at 20% a year, which is a phenomenal growth rate if you think about it. And to a large extent, that growth rate's underpinning these massive valuations that you see in a lot of the technology stocks. For a moment, let's just zoom out and understand what is driving this massive growth. And to understand that, let's have a look at this next slide. Now here you can actually just sort of see, because in a nutshell, it's the pace of change that's just been phenomenal. And funnily enough, COVID, you might have thought would slow down the economies. In the area of cloud, it's actually really sped up, and we've seen also just in terms of innovation, disruption of business models. Some of this stuff's been happening for a while. I mean, I can't remember, frankly, the last time I took a taxi. I always take Ubers. Same with digital, with cash. I cannot remember the last time I used cash. It was many, many months ago now. And I think we've seen this unstoppable growth in things like cryptocurrencies as well. Online shopping. All of these areas are actually difficult to keep up with. And perhaps I'll just over to you, Simon, if you could help us explain how the cloud helps us here.
Yeah, thanks, James. Good morning, everybody. I mean, as James, as you well know, we speak to a lot of organizations, and this slide really resonates when we talk to them. That pace of change, but also the ability to respond is getting harder and harder to that pace of change. And there's several reasons for that. There's a few that are detailed there at the bottom. So whether or not it's the IT landscape, software, hardware, or access to data, or people or process. One thing that is clear is as time goes on, that gap between that pace of change that seems to be exponentially growing and the ability to respond is getting wider and wider. And we sometimes refer to that as the agility gap. So it's harder and harder to close that gap. And one thing that we're seeing is from organizations that are adopting cloud technologies is that that's a part of the solution to enable organizations to respond to that agility gap. So effectively, we're seeing cloud as an enabler. And I think that's it's a good segue, James, to our next section of the agenda, where we talk about the different types of clouds, because cloud gets thrown around a lot, and there are a few different forms. So we're just going to, I guess, sort of dissect it into two main areas, simply private cloud and public cloud. So if we talk about private cloud here from an applications perspective, from a finance applications perspective, what we're really talking about here is taking those finance applications that traditionally would be running on premises, so in your server room, potentially in a cupboard, and lifting and shifting those onto a cloud provider in a private cloud. So it's just yours. Nobody else has access to it. But as we'll see later, there are certain challenges with that. James, give us the corresponding sort of public cloud view.
Yeah, well, in its simplest terms, public cloud is where multiple organizations share cloud computing services. And but importantly, from an applications point of view, a true public cloud is where the provider is providing software based on one set of common code, and that allows that just basically means everybody is using the exact same version or instance of the software, and that's important. We'll drill into why that's important, for reasons of mass innovation. But this software is basically called software as a service. So I hope that helps, Simon.
Yeah, thanks, James. So why don't we just drop down, I guess, a level below? And there's this chart here where we can sort of help explain what that actually means moving from private cloud to SaaS. So on the left-hand side here, we see a traditional on-premise stack, if you like, and you might not even think of it like this, but these are all of the elements that go into making up your software and hardware to run your typical finance applications, from the application all the way through security, databases, operating systems, and then obviously the physical infrastructure, physical hardware that it sits on. And when you are managing all of that, obviously you've got to make sure that it can all talk to each other, it's all compliant. So there's an element of risk associated to each one of those parts of that stack. Now, like I said before, when you move to the private cloud, you can lift and shift certain elements of that and reduce your risk. So you can see here in the middle in a hosted legacy on-premise infrastructure model, infrastructure as a service model, as we call it, you can outsource the storage and the networking. And there's some advantages to that. You get some initial cost savings, but you are still left running a fair chunk of that stack and, again, associated risk of that. So, James, give us a perspective of how it differs with SaaS.
Well, I think SaaS just takes you really to the end game where everybody's actually heading, which is you as a user really just want to worry about the application itself and that end user experience. From a security point of view, yes, you still need to worry about who's got the admin password. You need to worry about the segregation of duties, roles and responsibilities within that application. But importantly, a lot of that stack, well, all of that stack actually now is being managed by the software provider. And typically, if they're a big reputable company, they're going to be doing that job much better than you could possibly do it in an in-house operation, unless IT security or application management happens to be your core business. So I think that I hope really helps explain to people these different types of cloud. Maybe I could just bring in KP here and KP, ask you. I mean, Vopak have been on this journey to cloud and have chosen to go software as a service. Can you perhaps talk us through a little bit about that journey and the rationale and the reasoning behind making the move? KP, we just need you to unmute yourself and then.
Sorry.
Okay. There we go. Got you.
Indeed, when we started looking at this, and the trigger was simply the implementation of a new ERP for us, we did look at the difference between a private cloud and SaaS. And ultimately, we landed on the decision to choose SaaS, mainly because we wanted a system that was, in terms of application, was easy to use, and it has proven to be so. And all those IT functionality that needs to happen in the background, we didn't need to worry about those anymore, simply because SaaS looks after all that as an external service provider. And we found that to be very true. What it does do is it leaves us in the finance team to look after the active transformation, which to us was quite a big benefit in terms of applying SaaS. The other thing I'd like to leave you with is the fact that as SaaS is the future, we find that we note that there'll be huge R&D budgets devoted to the development of this solution. So for us, that proved to be a very sustainable and substantive solution for a future for your transformation program.
Yeah, thanks, KP. I think that last point's a critical one because, and we'll drill into this a lot more. I think one of the huge advantages SaaS has is the ability to deliver innovation in a very seamless manner. And clearly having a big R&D budget to make sure that you stay ahead of the curve, if you like, with all the new technology that's coming, definitely something to look out for. Just to sort of summarize here before we move on, I think understanding that software that's actually been written for the cloud which what is actually that term cloud native. And that's an important thing to look out for. There are a lot of cloud products masquerading as software as a service that are actually really legacy systems hosted in the cloud. And I think that is something that you should be aware of and cognizant of in asking your vendor and exploring your different options. I think at this stage it'd be great if we could move on and just run one more poll, because it'd be really interesting to understand actually where different organizations are at in terms of your planning. Are your organizations actually planning to make the move to SaaS? Are they sort of going to that what I'll call a halfway house, or perhaps a quarter way house, because they're only moving part way towards the that goal of being in the cloud with lift and shift and private technology? And of course, your organization might not be planning anything at all. But if you could give us your answers on the poll, it would be really interesting to see that. So just looking here, got another 20 seconds to wake up, move across the room, grab your computer, put your answer in if you could. That'd be great. 10 seconds now. Just squeeze out a few more results. I noticed a few of you that didn't answer the first poll, so it'd be great to get a good representative sample. Okay, thank you for that. And okay, well, we've got interesting actually. I mean, I'm looking at the results. I think everybody can see them. We've got about 50 organizations that are moving to software as a service. I mean, quite a few who aren't actually planning to do anything at all. In fact, they're more than the ones that are just lifting and shifting. So that's quite interesting, in as much as sometimes I wonder why that might be. And perhaps it is a lack of understanding within organizations of the benefits and value of making this move to cloud that they can give in terms of coping with the pace of change that we're all experiencing at the moment. So here I'd just love to go in a little bit more detail and talk about innovation, and this is just such an important difference between the way we've done ERP systems, or a lot of applications in the old. You put them in, and then almost the day that you put them in, you'd build technical debt, and that application becomes older and more unwieldy. Manual processes begin to get built around it because it can't really do what the organization needs of it. And now we're looking at a situation where with SaaS, you can get regular updates, just like the apps on your phone, they're regularly updated. So you're never going to be suffering from technical debt, and you've got a much more agile solution for your business. In KP, talk us through some of those benefits that you've actually seen on the ground, with your at Vopak, if you could. Thanks.
Thanks, James. If I may start with describing our project aims. So first of all, our finance transformation was all about modernizing our finance teams around the network. Our main project aims were in simplification and reduction of wasteful processes. We were also aiming for standardization and smart controls. Now, with these aims in mind, we find that SaaS as a solution did give us and provide us the platform on which to launch this project. With SaaS, we found that a higher degree of automation was possible. With automation, you take away a lot of manual workarounds, you reduce the risk of errors, et cetera, and all those tensions that I'm sure the finance community is quite familiar with. It does fall away with an application that is capable of quite a high degree of automation. And under SaaS, we're also able to access the system anywhere and anyhow, from the laptop, from the mobile, and all those modern things that we are now so familiar with in the age of internet and mobile devices.
Yeah, thanks, KP. I mean, one of the things I know you mentioned before in terms of getting quite excited about innovation being rolled out was in the area of it was actually a good example of AI within intelligent document recognition. Can you just talk us through the experience of how easy or how not easy it was to take on that new innovation?
Yeah, the main one that comes to mind is the AP scanning. We implemented AP scanning as the next step soon after the main ERP implementation. And what this tool does is to scan all our vendor invoices directly from an email inbox into the system. The system then recognizes where your vendor invoices have come from. It automatically posts it to the accounts payable system. Of course, what that results in is it's been pretty hands-off for our accounts payable team in terms of inputting a vendor invoice. That no longer needs to happen, and that's quite a revelation for our teams. Of course, the next step after AP scanning will be how you would have automated account coding. That would be a very interesting next step, and certainly complete our AI journey for us in the AP functionality.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, that is a great example of innovation being rolled out. That's very, very current, has straight away a really useful use within the business. But I think also just illustrates the power of software as a service. I'm looking at this world where we've got sustainable finance coming, we've got digital currencies coming, but there might be cryptocurrencies. These are all things that, if you think about it, are going to impact the way we do business, and that's going to impact the way our ERP systems need to work. And I think having an ERP system that is able to update without you having to have a huge project and get disrupted and distracted, that's the real power of SaaS. And I like that example that you gave us. So thanks for that, KP. I'll just hand over to Simon now. Oh, sorry, KP, you were going to say?
Sorry, I just wanted to add, and this was important for us, that the implementation itself of AP scanning, the tool itself, took all of 2 months. And it was seamless. There were no IT problems, nothing, no obstacles, no glitches. From start to finish, it took all of 2 months, and throughout the Christmas period. So that shows how easy it was.
Well, I think I'm glad you mentioned that actually as well, because it's a good illustration of the fact that I think with software as a service, it's because everybody's using the exact same version of the software. You kind of know it works because it's already operating in many other companies. In the case of Oracle, I think if you look at all of our software as a service, we've got over 36,000 customers. So we're quietly confident that it works in every industry and every geography. But I'm glad that you're able to speak to that experience as well, KP. In fact, Simon, do you want to just take it here, because I know the speed of implementation and the fact that it is a lower risk is an important factor.
Yeah. Let's continue the benefits, and as you said, speed of implementation is more rapid. So I guess from 15 years of experience of implementations around ERPs across finance and operations, I spent a lot of time documenting requirements and then doing pilots and quite often customizing those traditional on-premise systems. But what we see now in the era of SaaS is out of the box, best practice, no customization, highly configurable, but no customizations, which equals speed. And like KP spoke to before with OPAC, looking to standardize processes, taking those best practices. And as James was talking to before, this isn't something that's new. We've seen this shift now, I guess, over the last 10 years, where organizations are looking to, reduce the complexity in their solutions and focus more on the business process than running complex business systems. And it's not a new technology either. As James mentioned, Oracle's got over 36,000 customers across its SaaS product suite. So that includes the ERP cloud product and the NetSuite product. And they're all running the same version, always up to date, taking that regular innovation. And it's across every geographic region and in every industry as well. So a very wide-reaching set of rich functionality. So quick to implement and low risk. I think KP, you obviously recently went through that implementation, or within the last year or so. What learnings would you like to share with the audience that you realised during that program?
Thank you, Simon. Indeed, with our project, we started with a blueprint. Now, that blueprint took a great deal of time and effort and real thought from all the communities involved in giving that inputs into building a blueprint that was robust. With that blueprint was the start of how we would implement our ERP. You follow the blueprint so that standardization is refined to a level where you don't need to consider any deviations. And the only deviations that we would allow ourselves was very disciplined in terms of localization, and what local regulatory needs were the only times when we would, contemplate deviations, simply because you didn't need it with a blueprint such as ours. And we also found that under SaaS, you have self-service concepts, in other words, and automated processes, which means that this allows you greater efficiencies in the workplace. So in terms of implementation speed, I think that was very apparent in our global rollout. In terms of lower risk, we found that the Oracle Cloud system that we had chosen has copied functionality of its traditional ERP systems. What that tells us is that there is a great deal of institutional knowledge built into these systems that is available to us. And the other point is, with this broad functionality comes with also localizations aspects that were very important to us as we were implementing, in 53 terminals across 18 countries. Localization is quite a key component to consider in our project.
Thanks, KP. You raised a great point there around the fact that although these solutions are sort of newish within the last 10 years, they are built on decades of experience from the on-premise solutions, and taken the best of that function and logic and lifted and rewritten to be cloud native. And I think that's a good segue onto the next section around the difference between those traditional monolithic ERPs, as some like to call it, and today's SaaS suites. What we're seeing now is organizations take modules, pieces of function to solve a business problem at that point in time, and then build on it like a Lego model, if you like. So you take an area, maybe a subsidiary, maybe a geographic region, and deploy that, solve that problem, and then build on it either within that particular functional area, or maybe with another area, so from finance to customer experience, for example. But one thing that we do ask, especially the finance organization to do, is to ensure that you talk to your colleagues in the IT department and make sure that there's a clear roadmap of where you want to go. You might be solving a specific pain point today, but it's very important that you work together to ensure that you've got an end state where you're working with a common set of data on a common set of feature and function and logic. So very important to work with your CIOs to get that strategy roadmap in place of where you want to when you go. James, I know that you've got particular experience around this sort of SaaS suite perspective. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, Simon, thanks for that. I'm a huge fan of the suite. I used to have IT reporting to me in the last couple of roles, and the opportunity to simplify is just enormous with a suite. And by simplifying, you're actually driving cost out of the business, and that's an important thing to remember. Also, as important is the fact that you've now able to introduce a single source of truth. I think that's something that all us finance people understand conceptually. But the reason we spend so much time reconciling wasted time doing that in our reporting cycles is because we often don't have that single source of truth, and you're reconciling two different data sets. So yeah, and I think with a suite, having that unified data platform actually allows the application of some of these technologies, such as artificial intelligence and machine learning, etc. They like anything to do with computing, garbage in, garbage out. But if you've got the single source of truth, much easier to keep that data super clean, have it organized, and then get the most out of it in terms of applying new technologies and indeed just modern day analytics to it. And that's really where we begin to see the value that finance can drive. We're no longer sort of in a world of reporting. We can get into this world of data insights and analytics. I think I could probably talk all day about this, but I'm going to actually move on here and just talk about how software as a service can really impact our lives as CPAs and as finance people. And the one thing one thing I want to talk about first is actually just the modern user experience. I think for us that use, and we all do, we've all got a smartphone, and you have that user, what we kind of call a consumer grade user experience. And then so often, and it's been a while actually since I've used legacy systems, but every now and then I do interact with them, and it's always that really horrible, clunky experience going, oh God, really, do I have to be here doing this particular thing? When are they going to move it to SaaS? But because you get a much more intuitive experience and enjoyable. It's kind of enjoyable interacting with the system. And that has real benefits, not just from the fact that it's enjoyable, but it also means that you've got less training cost, the adoption, the change management, all of these issues that were typically issues with legacy technology, to a large degree get dissipated in the SaaS world. So, and another thing that's also, which is, I think more and more people are experiencing, things like chatbots and digital assistants. The ability to, I've got a Google Nest at home, and I'm constantly asking it questions, and just that ability to talk to your computer, actually, whilst it seems futuristic, it's here now. And even with ERP systems, certainly in Oracle's case, you can talk to it and ask it for the profitability on this particular category or that, what was the turnover yesterday, last week, and actually that's more and more going to be the way that these ERP systems are going to deliver the information to the users. But Simon, you might want to add in a bit more there.
Yeah, sure, James. I think you're right there. The futurists are telling us that the next user interface is voice. So we'll be watching out for that one. But the other area I think that's key and a big differential to what we've seen traditionally in the legacy on-premise systems is the data or access to data. SaaS delivers these sort of rich dashboards that you see on the screen now, where you've got info tiles that are surfacing the information that you need to act on. It's sort of responding to issues rather than having to find them, run reports and dig them out as you would in traditional systems. And that's just, I guess, a process of technology. The next wave will be where not only are those issues being surfaced to you, but then there'll be suggestions to solve them also. And I guess going forward, even potentially actioning them for you. KP, can you give us a perspective from yourself and your team on how you saw a difference in user experience and how it helped you?
Indeed. From my perspective of using it and trying to drive transformation, I think cloud and SaaS technology has app-like functionality. So it was built and grew up in the era of the internet and mobile devices. It means, these modern app-like kind of functionality made it instantly recognizable to my team. What that means is, you sort of have a much higher adoption rate and a much higher acceptance of a a new tool, that takes away quite a load of, let's say, the change management program, where in the past you would have had to, I suppose, live with also trying to teach teams how to use systems and IT kind of functionality. Today, under SaaS, we don't have that problem anymore. It's gone away. It helps us focus then on the other aspects of change, which I find also rather important in the finance world, such as smarter controls and changing ways of working. There's quite a bit of effort that we can then put into that because we have the time and space to do so.
That's great. I also know from talking to you before, another area is around mobile that has been beneficial for you and your team. Can you share a little bit around how that's helping?
Yeah, indeed. And so, we can access the system anywhere and anyhow through our mobile systems. We don't have to be in front of the computer or the laptop anymore. It means that that's sort of, freed up and shortened the wait time for processing. We receive money faster, we pay our vendors faster. Not that that's a good idea, but things are much more streamlined and cost and more efficient, much more so by degrees.
Thanks for that. So I think mobile approvals, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Sort of approve and access anywhere is great on one side from an efficiency perspective, but it's bringing work wherever you are. So yes, a double-edged sword. I think good segue to the next section, which is really how SaaS is impacting the day-to-day, week to week finance operation. So it's very much now moving away from your traditional model of spending so much time collecting and then managing and manipulating data to one in a SaaS world, like I said before, where that data surfaced to you and you're spending more time analyzing it, and then critically being able to partner with the business and help make the decisions to drive the organization forward. James, I know this is an area dear to your heart. Your thoughts on this one?
Well, I mean, this is one of my favorite charts actually, and I think pretty much all finance people that have worked in a finance department will have experienced the late nights as you work to hit a dead end. Feels like a dead end, but hopefully a deadline to do your reporting. Certainly, many parts of my career that was a big part of my job, is doing month ends. And you're typically, you're there working late at night, everybody else has left, and you're there at 8, 9 o'clock trying to get the results done. In fact, in my last role, that was kind of my experience and the experience of the team. It took 3 weeks to pull together the results. It's just like sort of big spaghetti mess of spreadsheets and back to that reconciliation thing, a lot of time trying to work out of the 4 or 5 different systems with different important information feeding in that role, trying to work out where what was correct and make sure it all reconciled. A real waste of time, and in a way that for me was the compelling event that thought enough's enough. We need to move to SaaS. We need to take this opportunity to automate and streamline, think of what the end goal in mind here, and actually got it down. It was push button simple. Month end now took a day. The amount of time that freed up completely rewrited mine and the team's work-life balance. So that just gets me super excited actually, and I think as we look forward as CPAs, that the world is going to be very different. I think it is going to be a world where work's going to be automated away. The skill set that we're going to be valued for more and more, as it should be, is the value insight, is the insights, the data insights, the value add to the business, where you can kind of partner hand in glove with your sales, your marketing team, your CEO, supply chain, whoever it is, and help them make sensible commercial decisions based on solid data. I think it'd be interesting in KP as well, just to hear your thoughts and how you and your team have benefited from SaaS. Is there sort of that before and after picture?
Yeah, indeed. So in terms of the quick adoption rates that I've talked about, I think it makes your ERP implementation, you move away from it being an IT implementation to a business tool implementation. And that for us was very important because, in terms of how we innovate as a finance team and how we modernize ourselves, I think looking at the ERP implementation as a business tool was important for us. And under SaaS, we found that we could move quite quickly to that level of thinking. The other one is with SaaS, you are enabled in terms of automation. So of course that takes away quite a big load of manual interventions. And to James's previous points about long month-end closes, that actually has gone away. And what's better is that not only have you eliminated the bottlenecks and the bunched up month-end processes, what you're able to do is to manage your whole month-end and pull it a lot earlier. So what you do is you're not scrambling to do month-end, but you are putting in better review controls, better points for analytics throughout the process. And come month-end, it's simply a formality to close your month-end with the switch of a button because you've done all the analytics up front.
Yeah, that's good to hear, KP, and thanks for sharing that. Which is a very similar experience to mine as well, and many others that have actually made the move to SaaS. I just like actually to sort of wrap up some of the learnings that we've got that we've had now, and then we actually are fortunate we've got 15 minutes for a Q&A session. So please do start writing those questions in the Q&A as I just wrap up now. I mean, I think hopefully you've all taken away that you actually understand that there are different cloud technologies. There's what I call the real deal cloud, cloud native. It needs to be rewritten for the cloud, and watch out for the legacy hosted software that hasn't, might have been re-architected. It's masquerading as SaaS, but it's not. And it won't be able to deliver the full value and the full benefits. It might be software where they say, oh, well, you can still customize it to your needs. Very seductive, but as soon as you start doing that, the continuous innovation is impossible to deliver, and that's where the real key benefit of true SaaS lies. I think also just bear in mind, in terms of understanding these current emerging technologies. I mean, I kind of call them new technologies because they're no longer emerging. A lot of these things, they're here now. And having a platform like SaaS allows you, and allows the software vendor to roll this stuff out, and allows you as the user to seamlessly adopt this exciting new technology, which has real, as we heard from KP, has real use, where you can take away a lot of manual work, and again turn that into the value adding work that we want to be doing. And then finally, just that last little section, hopefully that's a little bit clearer to people on the call, that you can understand how actually this technology is going to change your life as a CPA and as a finance professional as you continue your careers. I think my final thing on this is really just a call to action. You need to create a groundswell in your organizations. You need to go out there, you need to ask your bosses the questions and go, what are we doing? When are we moving to SaaS? And the reason being that a lot of particularly the larger the organization, typically the more true this is, that they don't, I mean, if I go back to my Unilever days, and KP worked with me at Unilever, but the more senior you are there, the less interaction you have with the systems, and the more detached you are from the day-to-day reality and the grind of the reporting. And dare I say it, I mean, some of them are sort of absolutely oblivious to the current reality and the fact that the on-premise technology and this legacy technology is holding them back. So I think we all have a responsibility to do that lobbying and shine a light on this area. Simon, I'll go to you first. I mean, do you have any further takeaways for us?
Yeah, I think reiterating your call to action, I think, James, so the first one is make sure there's a plan, work with your colleagues in IT, create that IT strategy roadmap together of how you're going to get your organization to SaaS. And the second one, just to remind everybody, right back at the beginning of the presentation, that pace of change, that's going to continue. And if you don't do anything, you're going to struggle to mitigate against that. So just a reminder that cloud is an enabler to help close that agility gap that we talked to at the beginning. KP, your takeaway thoughts?
Thank you. And finally, just as a reminder, we started off this project as a means of modernizing our finance team. So adopting SaaS has been a step change for us, and it's quite huge. When you have a proven and mature technology like SaaS underpinning your ERP implementation, it can accelerate your transformation journey immeasurably. I can't emphasize how much. And you will realize the benefits much sooner than you expected or anticipated. Those are my key takeaways.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that, KP, and thanks, Simon. Jan, I'm going to hand over to you to help moderate a Q&A session, and I hope we have got some questions in there. And I do encourage everybody listening, please do ask us your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. That was a great session. Thanks, James, Simon, and KP. And I don't want to waste much time, so I jump straight into the questions that already came through from the audience. We have Marco asking, do people experience any delays or time lags in cloud accounting and systems? And the second part of the question is regarding cyber security, whether cyber risk is a big concern to client-sensitive data and the levels of intrusion require a system to continually update to protect data. So I guess this is a question that all of you, the three of you, would be well placed to address. Maybe we should start with the change management part or the implementation part, whether people experience delays or time lags.
Look, I'm happy to answer both of them. I'll probably hand over to Simon if you wanted to add anything on that time lag thing. I think the reality is that with the introduction of the NBN and having a fast link, I think we've all got that now, and the reality is it's really very fast, yeah. Also, certainly in Oracle's case in Australia, we've got local data centers in Melbourne and Sydney. So even that, which is a small latency that you would experience if the data center sat outside the country, is minimal. So it's as fast as your internet connection is going to be. Did you want to add anything on to that? Otherwise, I'll go on and talk about that important cybersecurity question.
Reiterating your point, James, that Oracle has local data centers, and we use the tool ourselves at Oracle, and we don't see any delays. I'm sure KP has got a perspective on it, being a user of the system. Be keen to get your thoughts, KP.
No, when I first heard that question, my first reaction was absolutely not. In fact, it didn't even occur to us to ask that question because it just didn't happen. So that's my real life experience. It's invisible to us. There's no delay, no glitches.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, KP. Look, I hope that's answered that question. I think the cybersecurity one, that's a really good question and pretty topical at the moment. There've been a lot of ransomware attacks and certainly in the media. Actually, I'm running a webinar next week that's focusing on cybersecurity, and I've done a lot of research into this area, and it's astonishing just how many ransomware attacks there are. Now, what I can say is that with software as a service, if you've got a credible, reputable company that's providing that application for your use, you're going to have the resources that are more than you're going to be able to cope with, from an in-house point of view, that are focused on making sure that all the relevant security measures are being taken. One of the things that, without getting too technical about all of this, but with software as a service, the patching of and the updating to make sure that everything is as up to date as possible in terms of security, that's been taken care of by Oracle. In some cases, that's actually automated. They're using machine learning to help in that area. I know that one of the most common causes of breaches is the fact that people are are slow to apply the patches to their on-premise or their legacy technology, and that leaves a gap in the window, sort of leaves the window ajar, if you like, if you don't mind that sort of analogy.
James, I might add a sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to add an extra point on there. If we cast our mind back to the slide that we had on the stack, and security isn't just a thing that you apply to a user, but it's actually at every layer in that stack. So whether or not it's at the database or the physical security for the data center, to prevent people getting into there. So it's obviously incredibly important, very important to Oracle. I mean, our foundations at Oracle were creating a database for the CIA. So security has been sort of from the very ground up at Oracle. So I thought I'd just add that point in.
Yeah, and I think that, just away from cybersecurity, there's the broader thing. I mean, certainly as the sort of the CFO, my last role, I mean, I was also in charge of IT, and I get asked all the time by the board, is everything safe? And then of course, guess what? Disaster recovery is your responsibility as well. It's like, well, I'd always have to think, well, what would happen if actually there was a fire in the server room? How does that backup work? How do I get everybody up and running again? Having moved everything to software as a service, all I had to focus on actually was making sure, well, can people work from home? Can they access this from their grandmother's computer if necessary? You don't even actually have to provision laptops. And then it was like, okay, I need to worry about an internet connection. So I'd have obviously the fastest internet connection I could for the office. But I also then had backup. I had the 4G, it would be 5G now, dongles that we could quickly plug in if that went down. If that was what I was focused on from a resiliency point of view. So I think there are many other advantages as well for moving to SaaS. Again, you just don't need to worry about so much stuff. You can just worry about the bare essentials to operate the software.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much. And we're moving on from the cybersecurity topic towards SaaS providers. So Jia Wei is asking, what are the criteria when selecting a SaaS provider? So what questions should the organization ask itself before choosing a SaaS provider?
Simon, do you want to kick off? I mean, I could talk about it.
Yeah, there's obviously a number of areas here. I mean, security is obviously one, and how that's managed. The other is investment. What's the organization investment in the solution going forward, and what's their roadmap? I think you want to be understanding, without getting too technical as well, how does it, what's it sit on, and that stack that we looked at, even though it's the responsibility of the SaaS provider, you still want to understand how that works at a high level. And like we talked to, it's very important that there's that common set of data and a suite-based approach and making sure that wherever you're going from a roadmap perspective, you're going to be able to have all of the business on that one suite. James, like we said, there's many areas. Any key ones you want to add?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've had a lot of experience selecting software as a service and asking myself those questions. And I think the thing that's and that's really important, by the way, because I think that R&D and that spend is important, because when you make a software as a service and you do one of these projects, you don't want to be doing it again in another couple of years because you made the wrong choice of vendor. So you're really trying to if you get this decision right as an organization, this should and could be the last time you ever need to undergo a finance or a digital transformation, because you're going to be always up to date. But obviously making sure that you choose the winning horse is important. So in Oracle's case, we're spending 6.5 billion, that's billion with a B, such an enormous amount of money and most of that money is going into cloud ERP products, in our application portfolio and our SaaS portfolio. So I'm relatively confident that Oracle is a winning horse here, because they've got their head start over a lot of the competition, and a lot of our competition haven't actually bothered or begun to rewrite their code to become a cloud native offering, what typically happens, and this is something I'd like to caution people of, is that there are a lot of legacy technology that is being reskinned and put on, hosted in the cloud, but is ultimately being re-architected and reskinned to look like a SaaS product. And the marketing can be very clever around this, but and as I said a bit earlier, they'll even sort of go, oh, we've got the advantage because we can customize it for you. But as soon as you hear that, then it's not the real deal. The real deal is where it's a single line of code, it's the single instance that all the customers are sharing, and that's important because the innovation cycle comes from the customers themselves. So if one customer's got a problem in an area that they want to see improved, guess what? That gets, everybody then enjoys that. So you have that power, that sort of network effect, I suppose. And you can only get that if everybody is on the same version of the software. So hopefully that kind of addresses it. I don't know whether KP or Simon, you want to add further to that?
I think closer to home, you might also want to find out if there is a functional match to your own processes that you would be looking at scoping. So things like procure to pay, order to cash, A to R, arrival to departure. Look at whether your suite is able to support all the processes that you want to develop.
Yeah, thanks, KP.
Fantastic, thank you. We have time for one last question, and I would like to pose Adam's the question to you. So when software updates are to be implemented with SaaS, do users receive information beforehand as to what is being updated?
That's a great question. That's something that we actually get asked quite a lot. So the answer is yes. You get plenty of time ahead of the update to let you know what's coming, so you can prepare for that. But critically, they're delivered turned off. Generally, if it's sort of feature function, if it's user experience change, then they'll generally just appear. But turned off so that it won't disrupt the business, but there's an opportunity to take that and take the advantage that innovation's delivering. So hopefully that's helped with that one.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Thank you so much. We are approaching the end of this webinar today. So I just want to say thank you again to Simon, James, and KP. That was a fantastic session. And I also want to invite the audience to reach out to our panelists through LinkedIn. And I hand over to Lauren now. Thank you.
Thanks, Jana, and thank you to KP, Simon, and James. I think that was a great session full of a lot of information. In the next 3 working days, you will receive an evaluation survey accompanied by the recording of this webinar. We are also going to pass on, because there were a lot of questions, we are going to pass on all the questions to the panelists for them to ask, and we can email them out as well to you with the survey. We really appreciate your feedback, because it's extremely valuable to CPA Australia to help us deliver better events for you. Thanks again, and we look forward to welcoming you to another CPA Australia webinar soon.